encouraged and snacked and such. Thank you very much to our featured readers for coming all the way up from Portland for fabulous short poetry and longer poetry. That was wonderful. And now it's time for open mic time. As you know, our question of the evening, question of the month of May, was what is your favorite fruit? Because if you've started to notice, the farmers markets are opening and fresh produce is finally coming out of the woodwork. Up first, though, we have someone who does not have a favorite fruit. Hopefully she will give us her favorite fruit, or hint at it in a poem. Mackenzie Williams.
Hey, what's up, guys? I signed up before I realized that you had to write a favorite fruit. Mine, it's difficult to choose. I guess I'd have to say, apples are pretty neat. Bananas, definitely a second. So I have a story that I want to read. It's called The Starfish Story, or it's at least how I've always known it as. There's lots of versions of it, but the shortest is definitely my favorite. It's very simple, but it holds a lot of meaning to me. One day, a man was walking along the beach when he noticed a boy picking something up and gently throwing it back into the ocean. Approaching the boy, he asked, "What are you doing?" The youth replied, "Throwing starfish back into the ocean. The surf is up and the tide is going out. If I don't throw them back, they'll die." "Son," the man said, "don't you realize there are miles and miles of beach and hundreds of starfish? You can't make a difference." After listening politely, the boy bent down and picked up another starfish and threw it back into the surf. Then smiling back to the man, he said, "I made a difference for that one." So.
Thank you. If it's your first time here, please let us know, because we give extra cheers for that. Yay! I was about to ask. A love poem from 12th century Japan. This is by Mibu no Tadama Mine. Since our parting, when the morning moon looks so indifferent, no other time but dawn makes me suffer. Our next reader, who loves durian, or claims to, is Herb McLeese.
See if I can get this right, this light right. Yeah, I have to confess that I put that down just to be a pain. That I used to live in Singapore, and durian is a vegetable that has an incredible, or fruit that has incredible smell, that you're supposed to hold your nose when you eat it. Then it's said it's very good. I've never had it. And you were mentioning poems about poetry. Well, I felt since you've opened the subject, I'll have ones for that. Trying to get the light so I can read it properly. Kind of, it's in my face. There you go. Desert workshop. I have the strangest workshop to fashion my latest poem. It's far out in the desert. I must find it every time. There I work with broken tools, using scraps found in the bin. Yet I have more than I need, and the silence I require. Where is this workshop, you may ask? Now my tale gets even stranger. My workshop is within, not marked on any map. When I'm empty of words and have faced my desolation, I can enter my soul's desert and freely become lost. In time, my workshop finds me, and I craft another poem, unexpected yet longed for, written in the nick of time. Thank you. This poem was inspired by a work of a local artist. I went to see an exhibition, and she's fascinated by the, I guess I'd have to say the production of fashion or something like that. But the poem will be self-explanatory. It's called Beauty's Work. Beauty glimpsed in fabric, drape, and form, in cutting, stitching, sewing expressed, for a moment can be touched when worn in the admiration of her dress. Some would hold beauty cheap and sell her dear as the latest fashion, haute couture, for a diva, to beauty a stranger, though near, a prop for her drama, a lure. But for many, beauty is sweated in fittings and alterations, is present in a sewing machine's ticking while children nearby play, is felt in a mother's devotion and a daughter's adoration, and lived in her labor, oblivious to the tick-tock of fashionista stilettos. Thank you.
Ooh, the lights came on. Now it's blinding. I just know pleasing some people is there. Excellent, excellent. We'll just make you work for it here. All right, I forgot to mention, we're looking at about 3 or 4 minutes per reader, just to let everybody know, because we do have a surprise at the end, so do stay for the surprise at the end. But before that, we have Hannah Carroll, whose favorite fruit is raspberries, which I am dying for them to come to season. Hannah Carroll, and is this your first time? Yes, yes, hurrah!
Hello. So my first poem is called Writer's Block. It's my first Terzanel, which I was very terrified of. It's slightly overdramatic. So, all right, so this is Writer's Block. Bane of pen to page, release your hold on me. Keep no more my creativity captive. Set me free, that I may dream. Imagination once roamed so active, now inspirations die unnurtured. Keep no more my creativity captive. Tarnished evil that stunts and blurs, do not snatch away my words before they are spoken. Do not let inspirations die unnurtured. All hopes of success lay shattered and broken, a lonely white page, words snatched away before they were spoken. Time crunch frustrations evolve into rage. Wait, maybe this agony can inspire and comfort the lonely white page. Lifting myself up out of the mire, bane of pen to page, release your hold on me. Finding that agony can inspire and set me free, that I might dream. So, all right. And this next one is based on a sign that I found, so it's a found poem, and it's called Danger. So, danger, do not touch. Not only will this kill you, it will hurt the whole time you're dying. Do not touch. You may believe it will never kill you, but it will kill you slowly and painfully. Do not touch. Not only will this break your heart, it will hurt the whole time you're writing a poem about it. Do not touch. Not only will this kill you, you will never even know you're dying. Okay. All right. And then this last one is called Melancholy. I actually took only the letters in Melancholy and fashioned them into a poem using all the words I could find from that. So this is Melancholy. Loan me an echo, call me home. One lane, one ache, a lonely cane. Many men lean on alcohol, ale, my hell, my con. Only a calm cello hymn on lonely lane. Call me home. That's it. Thank you.
Yes, she said, thank you. It's a good thing you picked a word like melancholy instead of zoo. A poem by Mibu no Tadami from 12th century Japan. Already the rumor is being whispered around that I've fallen in love. Yet I have just begun to yearn for you in secret. Let's see. So our next reader is, if I can read this right, Autumn Hettinga? Is that right? Your first time, and you like mangoes. First time reader. Welcome, Autumn.
So, hi. First of all, I'm more of a songwriter, but taking a poetry class with Hannah, and it's been really fun to kind of play around with words. The first poem I'm going to read is called Memories. Whenever I hear James Taylor and his guitar, I will think of your silver Ford truck littered with minty gum wrappers. The public library will come to mind as well, the books whose pictures we read for hours upon hours. Nothing else to do, nowhere else to be, happy just to sit. The tea, especially peppermint tea, extra hot, burned my tongue. I guess I didn't really mind so much. I had your hand to hold. I know your silver truck and minty breath even better now. No longer do I burn my tongue. Patience seems to have grown in me. I can hold your hand without trembling. Sometimes I want to travel backwards through memories, to sit and hear James Taylor for the first time, before you liked coffee and before I left childhood. I guess I just miss books with pictures, staring contests, and simple moments we shared. And the next one is called The Rain in the Sea, and I love the rain, and my boyfriend's name is Dylan, and I was playing around with looking at what his name meant, and part of it is it means the ocean or the sea, so that's part of this poem. Two brown eyes smiling sweetly up at me, a pair of little boots parked by the door. These things that I love make the hardest moments worthwhile. The comfort that I find when it's just us, together, surrounded by nothing but raining drops, two lips pressed against my forehead at dusk. The two of us praying his will, not ours. Forever embracing unknown tides, eyelids shut, blocking out the world, taking in the breeze as well as the peace. Both of us remaining by the other side. Never wanting to forget or to stop, two hearts beating to the refrain of one God. Our cars parked side by side, hands clasped tightly, warmly, always. If one is good, then two is better. Then two become one, two come together. These things that I love, you and me, the rain and the sea. And this last one is, it's about, I'm a nanny, so it's about watching this little boy and just kind of what we do outside when it's sunny. It's called Downhill Uphill. We travel downhill, the dog, the baby, the ball, myself. Don't throw the ball downhill. I know how it will roll. But what I say I don't really mean, because I know we will still travel downhill, whether the ball goes ahead of us or not. When we reach the ball, finally, the dog takes a good account of how it smells before the baby picks it up. Now we are ready to travel uphill. I lift up the baby, who has the ball. Don't throw the ball uphill. But what I say I don't really mean, because I know that the ball will always roll downhill. The ball is thrown, and we travel downhill again. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, and I hope you guys will all come back. You folks who've this is your first time, and folks who are more seasoned at being here. Up next, it looks like, by the way, raspberries are winning on the favorite fruit tonight. So if you've not signed up for the open mic yet and you would like to add your fruit to the list, you are still welcome to. Up next, we have, and I'm going to mispronounce your last name, apologies, Abby Heggie? Heggie, all right, raspberries. And this is not your first time, I don't believe. Is it your first time? Okay, I thought you looked familiar. Alrighty, raspberries.
Hi. Okay. I haven't really been writing a lot of poetry lately, so I don't know what I'm going to be reading. Let's find out. Okay. Here's a good one. Sometimes you have to go by intuition to decide what you're going to read. Never mind. I'm going to read a different one. Okay, I just wrote this one, so I don't know how it's going to turn out. As a child, I was overwhelmed by the purity and the opportunity offered by a blank page of white. Marker held in marble over unruined bed sheets, not wanting to tattoo myself sharply onto someone else's flesh. Ego battling id to the end of reach? I think that's what it says. Pretentious blue, to the ego battling id to the end of each pretentious blue line until one day I decided to leave the lines. This next one is called Fluff. Okay. Fluff will prepare you for life. If you put it on the end of your pens and pencils, the way it wiggles when you write will cancel out the negativity of what you write. If you put it in your stomach in the form of sugar-coated chicks, it will burst your energy dam and comfort you with its energeticness. If you put it in your head, there won't be room for any real thoughts that might scare you or make you realize that this whole world is a factory and we're all being packaged with fluff. And the next one is definitely not done. The experience was not fully painted in it yet. We crunched our way through gravel lots, deluding ourselves into thinking that they were white sandy beaches, just as we deluded ourselves into connection, thinking that the fork you put in the outlet was a power cord to a TV playing the comedy of our friendship. I deluded myself so that I could be the water that you swam in to cool off. But every time a car came by, your leg would betray me and twitch towards the street while you filled your eyes with headlights to combat their emptiness. Fear of living, swiftly followed by fear of dying, when white-sheeted phantoms filled the minivan next to us. Fickle moon, you couldn't decide if you wanted to reflect my light, so you absorbed it. Thank you.
Thank you. This is by Fujiwara no Yoshitaka. I thought before that I would give my life for one night with you. But now that we have met, I wish to live on and on. Next we have Sarah Jane, who loves passion fruit.
Hello, I'm Sarah Jane and I love passion fruit. I did not write this poem, and it's called Sweetness. Just when I thought I couldn't bear another friend waking with a tumor, another maniac with a perfect reason, often a sweetness comes and changes nothing in the world except the way I wandered through it, and for a while lost in the ignorance of loving someone or something, the world shrunk to mouth size, hand size, and never seeming small. I acknowledge that there is no sweetness that doesn't leave a stain, no sweetness that's ever sufficiently sweet. And a friend came to me. His lover was killed in a car he was driving, and his words were low and guttural, and he repeated what he needed to repeat, and I repeated the one or two words we have for such grief until we were speaking only in tones as if on loan. Often a sweetness comes and changes nothing in the world except the way I wandered through it. But As for me, I don't care where it came from or what bitter road it's traveled to taste so good and come so far. That was by Stephen Dunn, I am pretty sure. What? Original? Okay, this poem is called The Blank Slate Revision. Okay. The deaf poet misinterprets, counting your snores like a confused lamb. If only you'd let our defiant glances compete in your mind's battle of authority and love. Because in that battle are jokes of consensual conversations, while mystic ideation synthesize around our room. You scrape your slate and observe the clay that John Locke has lied and handed to you. You know, we've been sculpting your slate since before you could participate. Yeah, you were born with impressions, and that's not to say we're not impressed with you now. Holy cow, we tune in from 10 to 2. Still, our only channel of foreign conviction is you. We watch for form. Let us mold you. Control, smoldered by our synthetic admiration, and we'll get you like we fucking always get you. And you should have tried copyright of the soul and not the song, because we feast on what's already been given up upon. But it's not too late to break your slate and open up your mind, open up this tenuous battle, and let love win next to authority, and let authority win next to our love. Now balanced, grip your talons into our flesh and return the favor to that confused lamb. Release the trance that had our misguided interpretations rarely uninspired. This poem is no longer about you because your slate has been broken. Now break mine too. Thank you.
Okay, it's mandatory. Everybody who's reading tonight, you have to come back next month. Done. I'll put them up for the night. We've got spare rooms. Up next, the apple is the favorite fruit of Yasmin Abu Bakr? Abu Bakr, hurrah! And is this your first time? Yes. It is, hurrah!
Hello. I wasn't planning on reading at all today, but my friends convinced me to. So this poem I wrote in 11th grade. It's inspired by Margaret Walker's poem, For My People. It's about my people who are Nigerian, Swedish, Welsh, and Muslims. So this is my people. For my people who grew up in mud houses and remote villages, who live with no electricity, no running water, whose children moved to cities, went to school, got jobs, had families, my people who remain optimistic through all hardships. For my pilgrims making the journey to the holy city of Mecca, walking between hills, throwing stones, climbing the mountain, drinking the water. My people praying for success and happiness, repenting for sins committed, seeking rewards for good deeds done. For my people come over from Sweden and Wales, searching for a new beginning. My people walking the Oregon Trail, walking and walking till they found their place, then built their houses, then raised their children, then gave way to a new generation. Continue on, my people. Continue the legacies left behind. Continue hoping and praying as you have always done. Look forward to a brighter future, but do not forget the past. Remember the triumphs and failures, the joy and despair, the people and events, the lives forged from nothing and made into something. Thank you.
Thank you for reading. I wanted to mention, in addition to the Soul Food Poetry Night that happens on the third Thursday of each month, please also consider coming to the Redmond Association of Spoken Word Readings, which are the last Friday of each month at the Old Redmond Schoolhouse Community Center. The readings there's an open mic and a featured reader. The featured reader could be fiction, nonfiction, poetry. It varies. On the Friday of this month, last Friday of this month, we have a memoirist. And I'm going blank on her name. But please come to that if you'd like. And there's an open mic. Yes, absolutely. And snacks. Here you can buy snacks, but they're free. A couple of poems of mine, in addition to the translations of mine that I was reading. The pen is mightier than the sword. Sometimes I think my pen is too small. If my pen were bigger, surely I could write better stories, better poems. Sign that 7-figure contract with Knopf for Norton. If only my pen were bigger. I know I would more readily please others, maybe too, even my wife. I've seen the ads on TV advertising for larger pens, but I've never had the courage to call. After all, my pen isn't that small. I'm okay with it, but I do wonder what it's like to have a really long pen, filled with deep wells of ink, one that I could hold lovingly in my hand, feel how it clicks, admiring it, having others admire it. A truly inspirational pen that would be everyone's object of envy. I get the emails almost daily asking me if my pen is too small, if I'd like a larger pen now. I used to delete these messages from my spam filter, but lately I've been wondering if maybe, just maybe, finally, I should get a larger pen. Not the size of Hemingway's, mind you, or Walt Whitman's. I'd be happy with Robert Pinsky's or Billy Collins. If I had a bigger pen, I would walk erectly at writing conferences, sign my books with more flair than John Hancock. If only I had a bigger pen. If only. And now we have a persona poem. Confessions of a Learned and Publishing Professor. I think that I should like to be considered a difficult poet. I should like my metaphors to be uncanny. I should like my images to be not merely deep but unusurpable. I should like my implications to be palpably plangent, my themes insubordinate, my forms diabolical. I should like my rhythms to be poison or feathers, or perhaps, with increasing regularity, ineluctable. I should want my first editions to be squabbled over on eBay, the queues to be tedious at my book signings. I should like, in fact, to have a society about me before I am dead. I should like the Pulitzer, the Lilly, the Nobel. And how about a knighthood, and while I'm at it, sainthood? Then, surely, I will enter the canon and gain, finally, tenure. Thank you. We have another Barry fan, but this time it's Blueberry. Please welcome Amy Locke.
My shoe just broke, so apologize. I don't have any shoes on. This is my first time here. Right. My name's Amy. I didn't expect to read, so these are just things that I had in my class book. All right. This is my pickle poem. These are class assignments, so. Chili pepper pickle, you are so withered, you are so rutted, like a tiny biting toad. Lime like a highlighter, avocado like pond algae. Picante fire on my tongue. Even water won't extinguish. Compulsive miniature bitter punches, a pungent tongue temptest, abrasive on your surface, polished at your heart.
pure party trifles, sodden with your nectar, superficially tickled with their twisted arc, enchanting svelte pickles, pecked from your zesty pickle patch. All right, this is called Lottery. I watched the lottery today. You know I almost won. I forgot to buy a ticket, though. It still was just as fun. I picked the numbers in my head, anticipating each number's new. The first two matched my choices, but the third was off by 2. The next time, if I win 10 grand, I know what the money I'll spend. I'll do the smart thing, invest it wisely. 10 grand worth of lotto tickets to win. So, thank you. And this one, we're supposed to have 2 voices. It's kind of not very voice-like, so oh well. It's called Schizoid. It's obscurity that fuels myself. I rouse with a thirsting. First instant lone existence, crooked terror clutches me. Oh, ardent one, I couldn't deprave you. My musings spirit your consciousness, wanting your form to embrace mind. Without, I would remain lifeless. I live anticipating your yield, my treasured. Any sin will I compel. Which horseman shall I realize? Terror, bewilderment, frustration, or despair. How fervent you remain to entertain me. Dark night deftly slither into the gloom. Murky inspirations intend to attend you, beckoning you and I to ensue. My skin shocks and quivers. I can sense the gleam and glare off my eyes. Breathless and hastened stepped, I taste blood weighing down the air. Grasp your treasured pearl, rule the forged steel shaft. This invaluable piece in our fingers, valued more than the life it cost. Alas, your sacred orders, sticky prose you involve, the poison you you involve, the penance I will reap. Sad victim of your mind, O mistress to my visions, our enchantments spent together, wicked entirely to our soul. I am aware through you and me, without you I'd be lost. Together we equal no influence comparable to your voice inside my head. All right, thanks.
Thank you very much. And shoes are optional on stage, by the way, so you're good. All right. If there's no one else for the open mic, then I will end the open mic session with a few haiku in honor of our short form or short poetry featured readers tonight. And then we will hear more from them. Oh, favorite fruit? Bananas. Lilacs in bloom. My neighbor turns up. Don't fear the reaper. Tin roof rain. The retired drummer taps his feet. Full moon rising. A Warren Zevon song on the radio. Raise your hand if you know who I'm talking about there. Anyone? Warren Zevon? Werewolves of London? 80 station. Ravel's Bolero. Our late night conversation. Northern Sun Cup. I confess my favorite Beatle is Ringo. Octopus's Garden. The refrigerator starts to hum. And now, our surprise for the ending of the evening. Thank you everyone for coming. May we have our finale, please?
All right, so let me explain the surprise. So Kay and I, part of what we do with 4 and 20 is we actually work with students, and we have what's called 4 and 20 in the classroom, in which we go into classrooms, surprise, surprise, and teach not just we don't teach the poetry, we teach publishing, and we help students set up their own anthologies of 4 and 20, and round out a little bit of the poetry lessons that they're learning. But we thought it would be fun to highlight some of our favorite poets, which are the students that we featured. So I'm going to read some selections from the 5th grade class that I worked with this year, and Kay's going to read some selections from the high school class that she worked with. So I think it'll be fun to alternate. Let me find it. Hold on. Mhm. All right. And I'll go first. I think I have 10. All right. So this is the book by Lauren Acavis Mendoza. And she's not here to correct it, so that's how it's pronounced. All right. My mother brought out a cookbook. Then I started to cook. And that was the end of my career.
This first poem of the high school group is called Halloween by Tanner Sundwall. Caramel-covered teeth bite into candy bars. Bedtimes are disregarded. Sugar high. That time of year, this is Halloween.
Mentioning Magicians by Anne Chayaka. Chayaka. Okay. When I mention magicians, that's hard to say. When I mention magicians, I make my motions and potions correct.
There you go. This one's actually by the teacher, but I had to read this one. It's called English 10 by Peter Palmer. Sophomores tumble into class. Time tips his wings toward fall. And in the front row, Jason's cowlick blooms.
Pen by Dylan Gorman. Pen, why do you run out of ink? Right when I am using you, you die.
Evergreen by Mackenzie Barnes. The trees turn orange, fade to brown. Hey you, piney one, stand strong, you're different.
Bring, it's 2 R's, by Megan Cahoot. Bring, hear the telephone ring. Roll under my bed, must be my friend. I'm late again.
Footsteps by Taylor Anderson. Come here, a few steps closer. You've got me on my toes. The thought of our next move excites me.
Elements by Connor Marshall. Thunder booming, fire burning, water flowing, rocks falling. These can be dangerous.
Monday by Kevin Fwang. The shrill beeps effectively end my slumber. I leave behind warmth in wrinkled garb, toast and warm essay in hand.
New Year by Abby McGowan. When they march along the road, drums and trumpets ring through the air as young and old stare.
My Mini Disney Fun by Elizabeth Casey. Donald sipping my hot cocoa. Snow White throwing tiny snowballs at dwarves. Pluto rolling in snow piles. Disney in winter.
Hershey by Kimberly Phillips. Me and my bunny were walking together on the sidewalk, laughing.
Night by Brent Cook. I guess I should go to bed. I have school tomorrow. One more round.
Butterfly by Megan Sarajan. As I came out of my silk prison, I spread my wings for the first time. My first flight.
Wow.
Fifth grade.
Free verse. This one's funny. This one's cute. By Alan Johnston. I think I've had quite enough of this unorthodox stuff. I end up feeling really gruff when poetry doesn't rhyme.
And then the last of the fifth graders. I love this one. Trees Hurt by John Yokin. And I have to explain, he actually wrote an entire chapbook about trees. This is just the one that got into the edition. So I was running until I hit a tree. I was bleeding until I got a Band-Aid.
Thank you so much, Vinny and Kay, and for your work with students. Really appreciate that. Have we had a good time tonight? I hope so. Please come back. Please spread the word. Tell your friends. Tweet. Tell everybody. In honor of students, I'd like to close with a poem called Purple by Alexis Rotella. In first grade, Mrs. Lore said my purple teepee wasn't realistic enough, that purple was no color for a tent, that purple was a color for people who died, that my drawing wasn't good enough to hang with the others. I walked back to my seat, counting the swish, swish, swishes of my baggy corduroy trousers. With a black crayon, nightfall came to my purple tent in the middle of an afternoon. In second grade, Mrs. Barta said, "Draw anything." She didn't care what. I left my paper blank, and when she came around to my desk, my heart beat like a tom-tom. She touched my head with her big hand in a soft voice, and in a soft voice said, "The snowfall, how clean and white and beautiful." Good night. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Soul Food Poetry Night. I'm Michael Dillon Welch, and with Tanya McDonald, we are happy to curate this monthly reading series. We've recently had smaller turnouts. I'm grateful for those of you who are here for not the first time. Thank you for coming back. And those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. Glad to have you. There is a sign-up sheet on the table back here if you'd like to sign up. There are plenty of spaces. The question this month is, what is your favorite fruit? And so if you haven't written that down, please write that down since we need to know. I'd like to begin by reading a poem by Milan Djordjevic, translated by Charles Simic. This is called Great and Small. The poet Basho teaches that the famous feats of blood-soaked military leaders come to nothing, while the leap of a frog may last for centuries. Black clouds and rain arrive from the Atlantic. The sun was out, but now over Saint Nazaire, the grains of ice fall out of the sky like black rice. Poets are creatures often lacking in substance, men who say stupid and untrue things, madmen and blabbermouths who imagine what they will. And yet, they whisper about miracles, rant about what others don't even suspect. So their words glow in the dark like phosphorus. The Japanese poet Basho teaches me that what is close may be terrifyingly distant, and that a journey to a far-off place brings one closer to oneself. Over the Atlantic, the sky has darkened. Hail fell just a moment ago, and now the city glistens in the sunshine and under the clear sky. Great and Small by Milan Djordjevic, I think is how you say that. From Croatia? I'm not sure. Somewhere there. Our two featured readers tonight are Vinnie Kinsella and Kay Tracy. I'm very glad they've made the trip all the way from Portland in Oregon to join us tonight. Really appreciate that effort. I'll introduce both poets, and then after the two of them read, we'll have a break, which is when you buy even more food and maybe look at some books. and buy some of those. And then we'll have our open mic after that. And then, at the end of the evening, we'll have a little surprise. Vinny Kinsella has built a career out of playing with words, both his and others. He is the publisher of the short-form poetry journal 4 and 20, which you can visit at 4and20poetry.com. He's an instructor in the publishing excuse me, in the nope, need to cough again. Sorry. He's an instructor in the publishing program at Portland State University, a freelance editor, and a consultant for independent publishers. His writing has appeared in several print and online newspapers, magazines, and literary journals. As a poet, his approach to writing is simple. Take what is known and say it in an unknown way, which I quite like. Kay Tracy is an associate editor for 4 and 20. She mixes the fountains of youth and aging by teaching children how to write. And publish literary magazines and make books. And you teach them the hand sewing too? Is that part of it? Yes. She has one of her books here, which is beautifully hand sewn. She wrote and designed her first chapbook, Garage Sale, last year, and has poems published in 4 and 20, Magna Poets, and soon to be published in Haibun Today. And she has a blog at immersedinword.blogspot.com. So we'll have Vinny read first, and then Casey. Please welcome Vinny Kinsella.
Set the timer so I don't go too long. All right. Well, first off, thank you for having me. And I want to just preface a little bit about what I'm about to read. So, like Michael said, I'm the publisher of 4 and 20, which is a short-form poetry journal. And the vast majority of the poems I'm going to read tonight are in that format. And to give you just a little bit of a background on what that means, the name of the publication has to do with the structure of the poems we accept. Each poem has to be 4 lines or fewer, 20 words or fewer. So it encompasses all sorts of short form, I have a lot of fun writing them. And so what I thought I'd do is I give you a sampling, a lot of my own, and then also kind of walk you through a little bit of my process, because I am a teacher at heart, so I kind of talk a little bit. So I'm going to start by just giving you some examples that I think kind of show the breadth of my little favorite form, and we'll go from there. But it would help if I actually picked the right poems instead of the ones to the left. All right. So, and just to give you just another context here, when we're looking at poems, we look for 3 things. We look for poems that either have creative wordplay, paint a vivid image, or evoke some sort of emotional or sensory response. And so I'm hoping that this first batch of poems, each one does that. And I have 20 minutes, and I timed it. It takes about 12 seconds to read a poem, so I get to read 100 of them. No. Yikes. So, all right. Beauty is allure, dancing through blue-green waters, promising sun. I will bite, I will struggle, by nightfall, I will be yours. Sickness is a barricaded will, a mind eager to seize the day, pinned down by a body with other priorities. Bravery, one brown mouse, one loud scream. Later, I cross, swim with the great white sharks off of my bucket list. Avoiding fast food. French fries incubating in the oven, chirping like newly hatched chicks. Breakfast on the front porch. Branches dressed in green reflect off the surface of a caffeinated pond. The old man across the table, his stable hand anchoring my wave-tossed arm. It's one right choice after another, he says, one after another. On the bus, The thug beside me, with pants falling off his butt, confronts my prejudice while earnestly reading Hemingway. The reasons I exercise. There's the obvious, a desire to live healthy and long. There's the concealed, outrunning the weak when the zombies attack. The laws of cycling. Never fall without an audience. Never hurt more than your pride. And then the last from this set, last movie before you leave for Argentina. And this is a true story. My best friend moved to Argentina several years ago. So, I cry as Frodo sets sail without Sam. You laugh at me. I punch you. It's how hobbits say goodbye. All right, so that was just a sampling, but when I write myself, when I write these poems, I actually explore a theme. One of the fun parts of writing in short form is you can come back to that same theme over and over again with your poetry and not feel like you've exhausted it. And so a lot of times without even knowing it, I've explored themes, and I'm going to share with you several of those themes, and a couple of these are actually already in chapbook form on my website. I do all of my chapbooks digitally, which is why I don't have any printed ones like Kay does. But I am working on an anthology I hope to have out by spring this time, or spring next year. So, but this next set of poems have to do with love. Tricky, this transition from me to we. Her smile, though, he found, flipped his letters upside down. Think about it. All right. Beautiful syntax and a smoochable nose shifted the grammarian's pronouns into first person plural. And I'm sorry, I teach grammar classes, so I find that humorous. All right. The off switch. I blather down the scenic highway, filling the car with noise. Her hand finds mine on the straightaway. Silence. The signs. Sea salt and vinegar kettle chips, Pride and Prejudice DVD, Ben and Jerry's chocolate therapy. Tonight, the remote is hers. And then this next set actually has to do with a little bit of me exploring growing up in a very, I grew up, well, I say, how does that phrase go? Cutting my teeth on the church pews. And so a little of this goes with just looking back on that. So in the beginning, seconds before my last candle flickers out, I read about darkness, the all-encompassing sort, preceding a genesis of light. Love is patient, love is kind. I've noticed, dear Paul, the omission of messy from your list. In the old church, we sang tradition-steeped hymns. Mother would cry. I would question our offering of borrowed praise. And Palm Sunday, as the processional choir sang its refrain, her hand found its way into mine. Hosanna in the highest. All right, so I am going to attempt to read one of my longer poems. I actually love writing short poems, but every now and then I find that I have to explore a topic that requires more than 20 words. And I'm going to read one for you that is the latest incarnation of a poem that I've written and rewritten multiple times, and I'll tell you the background behind it. I was obsessed with the realization that Earth is the third planet from the sun, yet it is the planet that produces the most life. And in the context of relationship, that seemed funny to me. It just seemed that the planet closest to the sun relationally should receive the most benefit from that relationship. And I kept exploring that theme over and over again. And as it evolved, first viewed Earth as this poor woman who didn't realize that her lover had two mistresses before her, and then it was very sad and tragic. And then I started writing and from the perspective of the sun, and then I started writing to the sun. And this latest incarnation, I think, gives Earth a little bit of empowerment. So it's called Caught Cheating at the Milky Way Lounge. If Tara knew her place in line was 2 steps back from first, she'd call upon her friend the moon and find some balls to burst. They would act in rivalry as certain women do and take revenge upon the tramps who orbit close to you. If she learned how Mercury, your booty call tonight, extracted warmth reserved for her, you know there'd be a fight. And if she spotted Venus dancing circles around your rays, that skank would find it difficult to dance herself away. How fortunate for Tara's sake she hasn't found you out. But when she does, a life will end. Of this, I have no doubt. If I were you, I'd stop this game and turn myself around. Stop looking for a better love that simply won't be found. Stop thinking that you're something great, you flaming ball of gas. Or in the end, sweet Tara will destroy your flaming mass. So, very angry Earth. So she'll probably be nice in the next incarnation of this poem. So, and then along those same lines, I began thinking about loving objects having love affairs with objects that weren't real, not real, but weren't human. And I came to the realization that if we're going to love a season, we should also think about how we love those seasons. And I fell in love with the equinox. So the ways of the solstice are far too extreme. First freezing, then burning, with no in-between. So I will not seek her when choosing my bride. I'd rather the equinox stand by my side. And the name of the poem is Moderate Love. So, all right, back to the short form. All right, so I mentioned that when I explore these short forms that I quite often will get hung up on a theme for several days on end. And last year, I was listening to the radio and had nothing to do with poetry, but it was a writing exercise that came on to write a letter to yourself as a child, pretending that you had the ability to travel back in time. And I think it was on some sort of sci-fi thing, and the idea was to, explain your world to your younger self. And I liked the idea, but what I found is as I was writing my letter to myself and then eventually poems to myself, I found out that it wasn't hints about the future that I wanted this version of me to know. And I started realizing I was writing to a specific version of myself. I was writing to the 9-year-old version of myself. And I had to step back and go, why am I writing to 9-year-old me? Why am I hung up on this age? And I realized that was a very big year in my life. That was actually the year where things kind of turned upside down. That was the year that my parents decided to divorce, and I moved from the city I grew up in 2 states away. And I realized that it was just a confusing year. And as an adult, we look back on events in our lives and we have a different perspective. But there are things that I wish that somebody had sat down with that 9-year-old person and just explained and just talked about. And so I started actually writing notes to this person, and I called it Notes to a 9-Year-Old Me. And some of these were words of advice that I wanted this 9-year-old to know, words of comfort and hope. And some of these were things that when he needed a good swift kick in the butt, some of those were those. And some of those were just also me exploring how that 9-year-old person and I are still connected. So I'm going to read several from this, and this is probably going to be my next chapbook that comes out. I don't think any of these ones have titles. So, all right. Time's abrasive flow has not eroded your birthmark, your freckles, or your admiration of the heroic Optimus Prime. How is it that I, learned, rational, old as our father, am the version of us who believes in fairy tales? This old box set of Narnian stories remains the last bridge between our 2 worlds. I apologize for burning the others. Playground politics become lunchroom politics, become office politics, become more reasons to just play Nintendo. When frustrated by failed attempts to write a simple love poem, I fault you and your fear of cooties. This one takes a little explanation. My mother, I'm a vegetarian now. My mother was surprised when that happened because I was the child who never ate vegetables growing up. And it wasn't until I realized the reason I never ate vegetables is the way she cooked them. She would put them all in the microwave so they're not rubbery, and then she would douse them with red wine vinegar, which I hate. So this one takes a little explanation. So vinegar-soaked spinach served without vinegar will reverse your stance on vegetables and demonstrate the folly of guilt by association. All right. Today is picture day. Before relinquishing your comb, you should probably know Mom dropped out of beauty college. Let's watch Wheel of Fortune is grandma speak for I'm not sending you back to your broken mother. Sisters, older, bigger, bossy, hurt the same as you. Even a brother cries over the breaking of mom and dad. Worse than hearing the words, "You're just like your father," are the years you'll waste trying to prove them wrong. Upon hearing the world cry, "Ollie, ollie, oxen free," don't waste another decade hiding. And then the last one, when it's all over, you and I still see the moon, the half moon, as a coin peeking from the sky's shirt pocket. In 5 more minutes. All right. And then sort of my last collection is one that I'm very excited to share here because I don't get to share this with very many people. These are poems that I shouldn't like. Well, in a way they are. So actually, Michael and I were talking about this. So as a publisher, I read a lot of poems, and you have your own bent, your own distaste, and things that you just sort of, I don't want to publish another poem like that. And for me, it was always poems about poetry. I never liked them. For the longest time, I would see them and I would just think, ugh, another poem about poetry. But as I began to write more and more and make a stronger habit of daily writing, I would find that suddenly I was writing poems about writing poetry. And so I had to step back and go, why am I writing the poems that I hate? And I realized that my perspective was off. I realized that these poems were not just sort of grabbing for an easy metaphor, but they were actually love poems. I was writing about a process that I loved. I was writing about something that I loved. And of course, when you love something as a writer, that just comes into your poetry. So when I started to view these poems as love poems for the very thing that I was doing, it changed my perspective. And then I had to laugh at myself when I had enough for a chapbook. And so this one is actually on my website. It's called Meta, and it's poems about poetry and poets and the art of writing poetry, or some really long subtitle. I forgot what it was. So, one-way mirror. Dear reader unseen, observing me towel-clad, preening my words, what crosses your mind when I make these funny faces? Honest poems are prayers, not the ones we fill with ought-to sayings, but the ones we speak uncensored, believing that God is truth. The writing process. Number 1, and this is actually my soul food poem for the night. Ask an idea to dance. Lock eyes. Move about. Continue till your motions are synchronous, even if the music stops. Scrawled in my notebook. These relinquished words, making self-accusations. A fractured haiku. Artificial inspiration. Solitude and rainfall, winter's fertile muses, grow barren this sunny day. I take another shower, exploring the drain for words. And that's true. Something about the rainfall inspires me, and when it gets sunny out, I find myself writing more poems in the shower because I need the rain, apparently. I guess I'm living in a good part of the world for that, if it's my muse. That's all right. All right, decomposing. In the compost bin, a half-dozen half-baked sonnets. A poet's confession. I've questioned, on multiple occasions, without any good reason. The significance of hope living one typo away from hype. I don't have time for poems, for love. Yet here my fingers are, caressing QWERTY's skin, ignoring the work to be done. She broke him, and from his body flowed raw emotion, enough for 4, maybe 5 tragic ballads. The writing process, part 2. The heaviest words sink. Once the shallow end is mined, we must deflate our rafts, abandon our securities, and dive. Monday. Groggy synapses prevent connecting the clever wordplay popular to contrary thought to a poem of any real meaning. Poetry blog. A journal left open, tempting me to fabricate the life I wish to lead. Staring at this blank screen, I remember snow-covered mornings, pristine, untrodden, unmucked, and hesitate to type. When I fall apart, gather the crumbled words that composed me loosely in one hand, scatter the letters off page's end, pocket any remains. And then my last poem for the night before I introduce Kay as a special meaning for tonight. It's called Short Form Poetry Has Its Benefits. Open mic night, 3-poem limit. Off the stage in under a minute. All right, so thank you. Thank you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Kay Tracy and explain why I have her here as my co-reader. So, and I was thinking about this. I've known Kay for a while. We first met, she was actually one of my students at Portland State University, and then she was one of my TAs, and then she won a writing competition that I held, and she was published in 4 and 20, and then she became my intern for 4 and 20, and then she was my favorite intern in terms of she was the one intern who would come back with the poems that she kind of pre-screened, and every one of them I wanted. Usually when you have an intern, there's a give and a take, and there were those, but it was like she could read my mind, and that was a breath of fresh air. And so I first chose her because of the relationship, and now we're friends. I mean, we went from student to all those relationships, but now it's just friends. And then I also chose her because I as a poet, I value both her sense of fun, but also her love for beauty. She has that good balance of both in her work. And I also wanted Kay to read because there is just a sense of humor about her, and she does everything with a little bit of style. And I'm going to give you an example just from this week. So I'm going to tell him myself. In our newsletter, I posted that we were coming to the Soul Food Poetry Night, and of course, when you write your newsletters at 11:59 at night, it's good to check for typos because you write things like, "We're going to the Soul Food event on Thursday night." And I did have a few people email me say, "Oh, you have a typo. It's supposed to be the Soul Food, S-O-U-L, not S-O-U-L-D." And I had a couple people point that out to me. But Kay, of course, did it with Kay's own flair, and so this was her exact poem, or her exact email to me. "Hey, soulmate, there is a D that needs to be removed by thee. Look and see." So there you go. That's Kay. So I'm gonna bring her up and let her have the mic.
Well, it's a real honor to be here. I'm not used to this. I've not read poetry, and I tend to get nervous when I speak, so one of my little sayings is, I don't want to channel the Chihuahua, because Chihuahuas shake all the time. So we're going to try really hard not to do that. The first set of poems I'm going to read are a little set of haiku poems that I'm hoping to illustrate and create into a picture book someday. So they're kind of childlike and whimsical, and I call them origami pinwheels. A new pinwheel, the breath of wind and jasmine, conducting butterflies. Grass circles. Footsteps unveil the grasshopper. Confetti pollen. An emerging butterfly whispers to milkweed. Peekaboo. Through pinwheel spokes, mother smiles. The ant trails, unrevealed by a blanket sweeping clouds. Passing time by creasing paper in two, unfolding sunlight. Breezes beckon, a parade of children waving origami pinwheels. A ladybug spots the center of Queen Anne's lace, and mother sews. Fireflies gather, stars beneath the moon, pixie dust. Luna moth, where pinwheels come to rest, jasmine dreams. So I did create a chapbook. I had a lot of fun designing and stitching it together, and I did bring some if anyone's interested later. It's called Garage Sale because I moved an awful lot as a kid. So I began to write these little poems on that journey. And I thought I'd read a few of them tonight. This first one's called Curtain Call, and it's a series of cinquain. The plane screeches at wind, singing props unwind sound. Wing flaps shudder, the tail expels cargo. Ladies, suited in blues, wait at the door, holding caps, catching kisses blown toward the passengers ushered down the metal staircase. I see through graded steps, puzzled ground. Gingerly, down steps my childful mother, trips. Now, in curtained corner, spare, white, mother there, laid on metal table, tended by white dresses dressing scrapes, knee, elbow, chin, in gauze. I gaze, I hold my breath. I touch with fingertips. I tap the top where cotton cloth hangs down. This next one's fun. It's called Grade 1 Foods. Very short. It's a 4 and 20, 3 lines. Green peppers stuffed with Crayola, my plump fist. Words. A hem, a lady wears, a bonnet of flowers, a broken promise rips the stitch apart. The next one applies to moving more. It's called Ruminations. And actually in the book I removed the last verse and then I just decided I wish I hadn't done that, so I'm putting it back. So Ruminations. Elephants don't forget their trunks when they move, packing dermis of gray tomorrows. Grandmother's park had an elephant slide I'll never forget. And so then I began learning a little bit about Kerouac and the Beat Poets. So I thought I'd try and write a beat poem. It's a childish one called Imitation. I played with dolls, replicated babies, imitation women, flat dolls, bottled dolls, punch or cut out paper dolls, Sears Roebuck catalog and Woolworth 5 and dime dolls. Slid glass slippers on her heel. Barbie was the real deal. Even though when you grow up, you don't always approve of how Barbie looks. Fruit blossoms. 3 girls sit in the courtyard, comparing buds. Let's see. This one's another cinquain. I like to mirror the cinquains. It gives me just a little bit more room for words to say what I want to say. So this one's called Cider Press. In Michigan, the cider presses were great, so this was one of those memories. Yellow, barn smells, donuts, cinnamon, apples, hay. The press release runs off at the mouth, juicy signs of fall, but I am still not ripe. And then this one is my little attempt to imitate Anne Sexton, although it's not as dark. She took a bunch of not nursery rhymes, fairy tales, and she wrote transformations, which are pretty awesome poems. So I thought that'd be fun to take a little fairy tale idea and make it into a poem about something that happened to me. So this is called A Frog's Tale. A frog for each palm to sing all night long, a pool full of eggs to greet us each morn. One day a bull paddled across on his back. My father netted him deftly. With skill of lacrosse, Dad gave it a toss, and Bully sailed o'er like a bowl full of... next door in his trunks, the neighbor did snore, his lawn chair straddled and sagging. So where did Frog land? The tail is well fanned. It spread like the news. Let sleeping Prince lie. So that's a little silly. So enough of those poems. Here's another one of my cinquain. Is it pronounced cinquain or cinquain? Cinquain. Okay. Sure. A cinquain is usually a 5-line poem. And I used to think as a youngster that you would do 2 words, 4 words, and so on. But then someone told me you can write them in syllables. So the first line is 2 syllables. Then the next line is 4, 6, 8, and 2. And when I mirror them, I usually go 2, 4, 6, 8, 6, 4, 2. This one I actually did. I think I mirrored this one. I'm not sure. It's more than 5 lines, so I guess I mirrored it. I call this one Reflections. Trying to name the child I knew long ago when I saw clearly through Adam's eyes. Before the serpent bit my tongue, the name, tiring. And so I also have to admit I like to write some darker poetry. I love writing Halloween poems. This is not a Halloween poem, but it stemmed from a nightmare I had. So it's a little bit more. It's called Nodding Off. What dreams rise in that land of nod? Sleeps, sleepless sands. Time slips by, face to face, with notches marked on by, sugarcane burned black. Leaves a stench, wrenching apart air's able freedom. Raven dives to sit on the altar, where golden fingers point with candled nails to the lighthouse beyond the bluff. So as an associate editor of 4 and 20, I need to read an official 4 and 20 poem of 4 lines and 20 words. So this one's untitled. Tacking the river as it bolts to the sea, the milestones in my shoes feel lighter. And I also like to write some love poetry. I guess I like to write all kinds of poetry. This one's called Taking Notes, and I was actually published in Butterfly Away with this one. Magna Poets has an anthology series, and this was the love anthology. Taking Notes. Between the sheets, music plays her dreams with lightly billowed forms, breathing in air's life without refraining, then sighing between the sheets. And this one's called Ripe Fruit. I offer my lover pomegranates to peel with his whispers. Rubies spill free to his lips as I burst from my skin. So now I'm at my soul food poem. This one, I had a special relationship with my grandmother. She lived with us when I was growing up. And even before she lived with us, she lived on the Straits of North Carolina in the Outer Banks. And so this is stemming from a memory of that. It's an East Coast beach poem. And I call it midwifery. But one of the reasons, I mean, there's soul food of your soul, and then there's soul food, and she was, you know, a good Southern cook, so grits and hush puppies and, oh, all the good stuff, greens. So that's kind of where I had to make this my soul food poem. Midwifery. We enter hushed, permeations. Sky and water lap the scalloped edge of aged lace. Grandmother presses into miry channels and holy sand bubbles. Gulls screech, sand slithers, while fingers pulse the unknown. Water breaks to surround. Grandmother's voice, a tunneled shell, grasped, pulled, slipped, grasped. My shoes are baptized as I take in breath. The balmy salt seasons fishy musk. My hands cradle the weighted white, presenting. Grandmother pries the lip. Seabirds squawk, dive, and beg to taste. Bitter brine, grit and slime, shiny pink tongues placed on mine. So this next poem, of course, we have to have a Northwestern beach poem. I really love the beaches out here. Even though the water's too cold to go in, it's just so beautiful and peaceful. This is called Combing the Beach. Silet's Bay at Taft holds the ocean and its broken shells. I seek what is missing. Waves roll and dig under the sand. Each hopeful presents itself. And though I haven't found the pure looking glass, each grain of sand mends the mirror of my face. This next one doesn't have a title. The sky, the waves, the color of sand, what rainbow can carry this promise? So now this one will be some of the humor I think Vinny talks about. I'm getting older, so I wrote a song for a woman. And this first little part is from a song called Early in the Morning by Mike Leander and Eddie Seago. And it says, evening is a time of day when I have nothing much to say. And then I begin my own poem. Men, oh, pause before her, thirsty, Perry airs. The jaws that catch, the eyes that gnash, everything in her is back ass. Word, the sleep that doesn't, the wake that dims, and the thirst. Take note of the thirst. It covers the tongue with want and silence. And then, at the window, the crickets sing. How much time do I have? Okay. This poem is the one I did get published in Haibun today, so that was really quite an honor. And it's a Tonka prose. Sometimes I'm not sure if my Tonka fit all the definitions of Tonka, but it's basically 5-word poems. And the prose begins, you have a set with a prose piece and then a little poem. And so I have 3 sets. And I call this Never Never Land. In many moons, I hope to have a child, not necessarily my own, who will sit and talk with me when my younger self has left. There is no one like my younger self, and I fear I'll be alone. Priorities. Dishes stack. Over the table, young and old drink tea, a ceremony of repetition. The kitchen is where people meet to cook, wash, nurse, and eat. It's the warmest room in the house. All phases of the moon sink below its window. Washing mother's hair, bending the water over silver falls, the foam displaces rainbows. I stifle my urges to return to a world where machines and gadgets replace human touch, a world where bread doesn't rise in the mornings. I wait for the scraps of time swept under the table when I can sneak a peek at the universe. I pass the moon and sail by the second star on the right, looking for my younger self. Basho's book on the table, pressing moments into dried flowers, a bouquet for my future youth. And I think that's about it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Kay and Vinny. We appreciate your coming here. And the surprise I mentioned at the end will be some more poems from them, but not necessarily from them. You'll see. We'll now take a short break, so please get something to drink or to eat. Take a look at Kay's got some books if you want to take a look. And if you haven't signed up for the open mic, the sign-up sheet is over there. So let's take about 10 minutes. Thanks again.